Hello, Airbus Cockpit Coach here, and welcome to the channel. In this video we're going to be looking at the LDA approach into Tokyo Haneda's runway 22. What exactly is an LDA approach? The LDA stands for Localizer Directional Aid. It's a type of non-precision instrument approach that provides lateral guidance only. It's similar to a standard ILS localizer, however the localizer is not aligned with the runway centerline, it's offset. Quite often these do not have a glide slope, although they can do. Today we do not have a glide slope, so we have to manage our own vertical descent. So we're going to be using lock mode to fly our LDA today, rather than approach mode, which would intercept the glide slope as well. Let's just have a look at the charts. So here we have the LDA Zulu for runway 22. We're currently just outside of Bacon, and we have 5,000 mandatory altitude all the way around to Bondo, which is our final approach fix. So this is where we can intercept our offset localizer, if you like, and we'll be using lock mode to track 277 across to Mike X-ray 22. Once we reach Bondo, we'll begin our descent using FPA mode, and want to be level at minimum descent altitude, which is 1,000 feet. Prior to that, so we can be stabilised. So something like a -4 flight path angle should help us out there. 3.5 to 4. We can adjust that accordingly. So we're going to fly around from Bacon, Bilbo Beast, intercept the localizer, India Kilo Lima, send using track FPA. Now Mike X-ray 22. We're at decision altitude. We're visual and happy. We continue left to turn visually manoeuvre the aircraft onto final. Or if we're not happy, we turn right and execute the go around. We fly climbing to 4,000 to Kazga. At Mike X-ray 22, we'll disengage the autopilot and also disengage the flight directors. Position ourselves visually for runway 22. We look at the next chart, which goes through the visual segment in a little bit more detail. You can see we've got 1.8 miles from Mike X-ray 22 to landing, and we're intercepting a track of 222 inbound. We can put that into the FCU window. See, we've got some visual features as well, Tokyo Gate Bridge and a wind power plant off to our right side as we begin that turn. If we have any issues in this stage of the flight, closer to the runway, we need to notify ATC as soon as practical. And if we're unable to get a word in with ATC, we need to begin the right turn to join the Hotel Mike Mike Echo VOR radial 015, which picks up the original missed approach routing. So in our minds, we want to be clear that we need to turn right in the event of a missed approach. In terms of the manoeuvre itself, this isn't particularly demanding. There are harder approaches to do, but it's unusual because at 1,000 feet, we're normally established, fully configured for landing and aligned with the runway. On this particular approach, at 1,000 feet, we're only just beginning our final turn. And also the offset here of 55 degrees is quite unusual. In the real world, I'm quite used to flying offsets of 3 degrees. Thinking about airports such as Naples, for example, runway 06, there's a bit of 3-degree offset for terrain reasons. That's quite common. One catch with those though, if you're not used to flying those and depicting those on the charts or flying into those aerodromes, you may not pick up the fact that there is an offset. So here it's quite clear. You've obviously got the visual turn, you can see it's not aligned with the runway. That's very apparent. If you go and look at Naples, for example, unless you pick up this offset lock little box here, it's not necessarily apparent. So do be looking out at your charts for some of these airports which have offsets, because they can catch you out. Obviously in the real world we have airport briefings, we have line training, we're very familiar with the destinations we fly to, and we're aware of the approaches and what they entail. If you're flying to airports in the sim for the first time, that may be a bit of a catch for you, so do look out for that. So I'm going to unpause the sim now and we'll fly around and begin our approach into Haneda's runway 22. Okay, so beginning our turnaround. A lovely day for flying today over the city of Tokyo, a very sprawling city. And one of the reasons for this approach is to avoid overflying the city. So whilst the runway does have straight-in ILS capability, they often opt for the LDA approach to reduce the impact on the built up areas in terms of noise, and also I believe there's some military zones in the area too. These type of approaches are also used obviously for terrain avoidance as well, where terrain can cause issues when trying to emit a localizer signal, so it's not always possible to have a nice straight aligned localizer with your runway. So level up 5000, config 1+F, thinking I'll turn around. I will do a replay of the flight over the city at the end from an external view. I am using very high levels of detail here, I think maximum settings for visuals today. Although we are using standard scenery. This is raw Microsoft 2024 at its best. So Bondo is where we begin our descent. We're going to be using FPA mode, so I'm going to be inputting a flight path angle about 0.3 miles before Bondo to allow the aircraft time to adjust to that new angle, get us set up in descent. We also want to be config 2 for our descent as well. It's very similar to it, getting onto the usual glide slope at that point as well as we start to configure for our landing. Got our minimums in at 1000. And we can turn on lock now. As the localizer's coming in, we can intercept that. Lock star. So we're now intercepting that offset localizer on a course of 277. Just becoming established on that, which is at 55 degrees offset to the runway. And we'll go flaps 2, speed checks, flaps 2. Start configuring the aircraft now for our descent. And I'm going to select track FPA mode up here. And I'm going to dial in an initial -4 degree flight path angle at 0.3 nautical miles, which is now going to get going down. So FP8 in descent to minimums of 1000 feet. So we can adjust the flight path angle accordingly. I want to get down there and be level before our next waypoint of Mike X-ray 22, so we can be nice and stabilised for the visual segment. So we've got just over 10 miles to run to the ILS fix, which is beyond Mike X-ray 22. So we've got 9.2 miles, 9 miles now to Mike X-ray 22, another 1.8 to the runway. We're coming up to just 10 miles out. So just think about your configuration and how you'd be in a normal sort of approach. Through 3000 or 1000.
2,500.
And we can go gear down. And flaps free, speed checks, flaps free. We can't turn before Mike X-ray 22, so no left turn before we pass the next waypoint. Flaps full, speed checks, flaps full.
Above.
Approaching our minimums of 1,000. Go autopilot off now.
1,000.
And flight directors off. Landing checklist.
Minimum.
Put in our go around altitude of 4,000 into the FTU. Continue. Go around altitude set. Eco memo landing no blue. Runway's over to the left, just behind the window pillar there. Passing the bridge there on the right side. And we can begin our right turn now. Intercept track 222, so we can put the final track in for reference. Usually the pilot monitoring would do that for us. Begin a shallow descent round to the runway. Way over that. Two whites, two reds.
Retard.
Bus, spoilers, decel. $70 knots. Manual braking. I'm just going to bring the aircraft to a stop on the runway. Set the parking brake. There you have it. That's the LDA approach into runway 22 here at Tokyo Haneda. Obviously they have their place, they have their reasons for being, and they allow us to get around obstacles, terrain, or deal with complexities of having airports very close to large urban areas. It's a great one to have a go at, so do have a play with that in your own simulators. And if you have any questions on that at all, please drop them into the comments and I'll do my best to answer those. In the meantime, I will leave you with a replay from the external view. Thanks always for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.